You're listening to Reignite, a podcast about how nothing good ever comes from blood magic. I'm Frankie.
And I am Matt, aka Stormageddon.
It's time for a solo mission. Sort of. The Warden leaves behind their companions to return to the deep roads. Here, they join Jarek Dace as they retrace the steps of an expedition for Amgarrak, a laboratory said to have recreated the works of Caridin with the help of its Vinter mage. 20 men disappeared on the expedition for this lost research, including Jarek's brother Brogan. Together with his trusty Bronto Snug, you discover the gruesome secrets of the Golems of Amgarrak.
So, I don't know what we're going to talk about for an hour besides how awesome Snug is, because literally it's the highlight of the whole mission, is the Bronto named Snug.
Good. I wish there was more interaction with Snug.
Yeah. You can't give us a custom pet and then not give us interactions with it. That's like a crime. It's like all the dogs and cats that are in Fire Emblem Three Houses that you can't pet. It's like, why would you do that to a person? It's unfair.
The introduction to this DLC really set the tone in a realistic way. Did you read the little blurb before you started it?
Yeah.
The dwarves' lost tags, forgotten for 1,000 years, are finally within reach. Among them is Amgarrak, once home to the scholars intent on rediscovering Caridin's art of golemcraft. But an expedition to the ruins has gone missing, and only you can uncover the gruesome fate that befell them. Gruesome?
I mean, yeah.
You mean we're going to the deep roads and something terrible is going to happen?
I know, right? And also, I don't know, I was hoping there'd be more of a connection here since my character's a dwarf, but there really isn't that I can tell anyway. If there was, it was minor. I am conflicted about this DLC. I appreciate narratively what it was trying to do, but mechanically hated a lot of it. And we'll get to that. And I think mostly it's just because Dragon Age Origins' idea of puzzle solving is so inconsistent and scattered that it, and there's no, yes, the notes that you find are supposed to help you. It's it just doesn't, there's not a consistency that's in the other two games that Dragon Age Origins is kind of all over the map. But we'll get to that. But yeah, so this is a mission where you start as just your warden. You meet Jarek. You go into the deep roads and head to Amgarrak, and then your job is to explore and find his brother.
So my issue right off the bat is I kind of hate that we have to leave behind all of our companions.
Yeah, it's
not ideal. On the one hand, they do provide you with all the companions that you need. They give you a balanced party, so to speak. They don't offer you a mage, but if you're a mage, it's fine, I guess. But you have Jarek, who is a rogue. You pick up a golem. You have Snug.
Yeah.
Who's just always there.
Yeah.
And you pick up Brogan, and that fills out your party. You have a warrior, you have a golem, which doubles as a warrior, you have a rogue, and you have, whatever you are. In my case, a mage. Not that it matters too much, because I play a mage that goes in with a sword, so...
Right.
I play a mage the way I play a mage.
Right.
But yeah, I don't love that. We start off immediately okay, it's just you and this strange guy.
Yeah, I think it feels unrealistic that our romantic partner isn't here, right? I feel like the rest of the party not being here makes sense, right? Depending on the ending, some people go out, some people go off on their own. Some people become advisors to the throne. It would make sense that they're not here. But Zevran agrees to come with me to rebuild the wardens. So why, I would leave for a dangerous mission without him as a warden? It just doesn't make sense, really. And I think that's the glaring hole. I think the whole party not being there makes sense to a level, but your partner at least, or your dog, if they're alive, should be with you in this mission.
Dog at least.
Yeah.
But also, I could ignore all that. I could, totally be fine with not having my companions if I had any emotional attachment to this guy.
To Jarek, rather.
Jarek.
Jace, yeah.
Yeah. We never meet him before. We know nothing about him. If this had been Dagna's research project.
Yeah.
I'm in because it's Dagna. Or if it had been someone that we met or encountered asking us for help, then I have an emotional investment. But that's us being picky. That's us being nitpicky.
Right. I mean, it's an extra mission. I think it suffers from a similar problem that the Darkspawn DLC suffers, as we need a reason to care. And like, we should just care about doing the mission and having some extra stuff to do. But the reality is both of us are mostly over the combat. And so like the narrative's got to be what hooks us. It's why Liliana's song was for the most part, pretty entertaining and enjoyable, is because we care about Liliana, and the companions were really entertaining and interesting the minute we met them, right? Like, Jarek is kind of a default dwarf. In fact, when he's when he's doing the narrative at the beginning, where he's like being the narrator and explaining what happened, for a half second I thought it was what's his name from Dragon Age 2 and 3, Varric. Like, the voice was similar enough, and I was like, oh, if we're gonna, like, this is our first adventure with Varric, that would be cool. It wouldn't really make sense based on like the later stories, but like that actually got me invested for a second. Then I realized when they showed Jarek's face that I was like, oh no, this is someone else. And so like, yeah, I think it's an extra thing to do. And also, like, I think most of the combat we probably won't talk about except the boss fight, because I think that's worth talking about because it was at least a little different. But the combat here is mostly the same, and also I found it to be very unbalanced. There were many rooms that you would walk into where you'd get assaulted by a large group of golems that completely obliterated me unless I like cheesed a way to defeat them.
Well, it's supposed to be challenging.
Yeah.
Like, it tells you up front, this is a level 20 DLC. If you entered in with a brand new character, they would have made you a level 20 character. So that's to be expected, honestly. But I do get your frustration. It is very challenging, even on the easy difficulty. I had a moment where I was attacked by 6 golems at once. My entire party died except for me. I got backed into a corner, and I killed the 5 remaining golems by myself.
Yeah. I mean, so there's the problem.
Sheer luck.
Like, the golem rooms, like, there's one golem room where you phase into a green phase. We'll talk about that in a minute. And, like, if you unphase, they attack you. But then you can phase again, and they disappear, and you can, like, slowly whittle them down, which is what I had to do. The problem here also that I'm finding...
I didn't even think to do that.
See, well, I looked up a walkthrough. I had to. Like, I looked up a
walkthrough too because I was like, I'm too stupid for this.
Well, I mean, that too, the puzzles I hate in this game, and I've been quite vocal about that. But for me also, it was like, I died on that. Like, typically, I die on a fight a couple times. It's fine. But I died on that fight like 6 times. And after that, I was like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I must be. But part of the problem is that I'm a rogue. We get a rogue. You don't get healing with the golem until you find it in that room near the end of the dungeon. And so I had no way to heal but potions. And, like, there's no cooldown on potions, but still, like, against golems, you're getting stunned every 3 minutes. And so not even. So I hit a wall there that I've never hit in this game before. Every battle that I kept dying, I found another way to get through it, picking a different character, strategizing differently. I just hit a complete brick wall this time, and it was really frustrating.
It was frustrating. I agree. I fortunately did not die once, which I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Like, it could probably because I'm playing the easiest difficulty. Like,
so am I. So am I.
Are you?
Yeah.
I thought you were playing a higher difficulty because you're like more of a gamer than I am. I thought like I would maybe stepped it up.
my skill as a video game player is varied depending on the game, but like for Dragon Age, like Mass Effect, we care more about the story. The combat's fine, but we're not replaying these games for the combat.
Right.
In the second and third games, maybe I'll play on the normal difficulty, but like for this one, I hate the combat so much most of the time that I just want to get through it. And so I've been playing on easy, unless the difficulty is separate on the DLC, in which case then I was playing on normal, but I didn't even think to look. I don't know. Also, I'm hitting the limits of, like, I like a ranger class. I like that I went into, like, a pet management class, but it's so boring in Dragon Age 1. Like, I kind of want to be a ranger in the other 2 games because I never have, just to see what it's like. And, like, Sarah in the 3rd game has some cool talents and stuff. And so, like, I
make me be a mage again.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. The thing...
We'll flip a coin.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I I think also mages are kind of overpowered in Dragon Age if you know how to play them in a way that rogues and archers
Actually,
are not.
I don't hate mage in Dragon Age 2. It is a little bit easier in Dragon Age 2.
But yeah, anyway, so this DLC was hit or miss for me, but like, so how the story works is you start to explore with Jarek. You eventually find a golem that when you find the control rod you can use, and it kind of is
runic golem.
A runic golem, and it has some pretty typical golem abilities, but it doesn't have a lot of them because as you go through the dungeon, you're going to find schematics to unlock more abilities, which is a cool idea.
Yeah,
I just think
neat.
I just thought it was half baked because you get some of the more essential stuff later on, and it kind of didn't work. But anyway, so you continue to explore, and you eventually find Brogan, who is Jarek's brother, and he's in this blue hue. He looks like a blue glowy from Star Wars, essentially, and is completely... What is it with dwarves locked away in taigs that have lost their minds? Literally everyone.
It's the deep roads. It's what they do.
I know.
It's not the first time. It's not the last time.
That's
we are
true.
going to encounter way more who have just completely lost it. And you know what? If I were trapped underground, I also would lose it with all the horrifying shit that's in the deep roads. Let alone the Darkspawn. Darkspawn don't even fucking factor into it. We fight like 4 Darkspawn and we're like, okay, that was fine. And then no more Darkspawn. They're gone.
Yeah. I do like here that as we're moving through the Taig, there is this creature that we keep seeing that at one point Jarek goes, did that have a human face? Trying to lean into the survival horror again, like they've done in some other missions, which I do appreciate, to try and do something different. And when we get to the ending, there's even more of that, but we'll get there. So anyway, we find Brogan. He's kind of rambling. He interacts with us a bit. He can see us, but then we go and we tell him, we're going to rescue him. I do like Jarek's resolve here. While he is kind of a generic character, I do appreciate how much he cares about his brother. This feels like there is some care in the writing, just not as much as I would have liked. But as we continue to adventure on, we find this giant glowing orb that's spinning and a button and then a dead end. And we're like, so it took me an embarrassing amount of time to figure out what to do in this room.
To push the button?
Yeah. I just kept running around.
I was like, Matt.
I know, I missed the button. Well, because when you phase, it's that giant, like the pedestal. To phase originally, you have to press like a button on the floor, and it didn't register. But when we press the button, we go into our blue phase.
It was never a phase.
And everything turns blue, and then Jarek...
You're blue shifting already.
But Jarek says, in case you're an idiot like me and didn't realize, this is the same color that my brother was. Let's go see if we can find him.
I did not take forever to find this switch. I actually did not let anyone finish talking before I pushed the switch. Like, I was just like, ooh, button.
Yeah. Oh, wait. But before we go any further, I'm so pissed that when we first enter the cave where the weird mist is that's guiding us where to go before we even get to all that other stuff, I forgot that there's a rope trap that I couldn't disarm. I'm a rogue. Yeah. There's that rope trap when you first walk in that triggers the handful of Darkspawn that you fight and an explosion. It wouldn't let me disarm it, and I'm so mad about it. Like, why be a rogue if I can't disarm every trap?
I tried to disarm it, forgot that I'm not a rogue, and then it didn't matter because the Darkspawn triggered the trap.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Yeah, no, we blew up because I was like, well, I guess we have to walk through it, but I was very annoyed about it.
Yeah, no, why didn't you try switching to what's-his-face to see if he had a better shot?
No, it was non-interactable.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Mine allowed me to try to disarm it, and then it was like, you can't do that.
Mine wouldn't even let me interact with it.
Maybe so it was dumb. A bug.
Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, long story short, and rewinding back to the forward part we were at, something like that, we find Brogan, and now we can interact with him. He can join our party, and he gives us kind of the lowdown on what's going. Apparently, the whole crew came here. They all got separated. A bunch of them died, and there's something terrible down here. And That's all we know.
Oh, one other thing before we jump around as we have been. Specializations.
What about it?
Did you take on a new specialization from the bonus ones offered?
No. I stuck with Ranger. I didn't even realize I could take on bonus ones.
Oh.
They're probably there. I just didn't pay attention.
Yeah, when you level up, it's like, oh, you can take on another specialization.
No. I stuck with Ranger and actually got some new Ranger abilities.
Oh, that's
Like,
good.
yeah. So like there was you get a lot of like toggles that either make you shoot faster or have better accuracy or whatever. There's a new one called Accuracy that kind of just buffs all of your Ranger stats. So
Oh,
instead
that's
of
neat.
needing all of those other toggles, you can use this one that kind of just improves everything, which was nice.
I took on Battle Mage
Uh huh.
because it had to do with getting into the thick of things, which is what I do.
Right.
As what is it called? Can't remember what the other one is called, but I took on the Arcane Warrior. So it pairs really nicely with Arcane Warrior if you decide that you're going to use a melee weapon as your magical weapon,
Uh huh.
because the whole focus of Battle Mage is the fact that you are getting into the middle of things, and if you're using a melee weapon as your magical weapon, then that's a really nice complementary specialization. So I thought it was really cool that we had access to these new specializations. The other one was Keeper
Okay.
for me. And then the two new ones for Rogue were Shadow. Oh, I can't remember what the other one was. I just know one of them was Shadow.
Right.
And I don't remember what the Warrior ones were.
That's okay.
But I thought it was neat that we had these additional options and that you could really expand your skill tree,
Yeah,
as it were.
I'm curious because I've the only like I said the only DLC I've done is Awakening. I'm curious if we can load because I got a couple of levels in this mission. I'm wondering if we can load this version of our Warden or if we still have to load the main game's version.
I hope we can load the most recent version of our Warden.
Me too.
So we'll see what happens.
So yeah, this mission, to make a very long story short, the blue phase is the first of many phases. We discover the notes of Darian, who was like trying to solve this place, and it gives you hints on what you're supposed to do, but not. It's the same kind of cryptic hints we've gotten before that you have to like kind of really pick apart to understand. And apparently that's clear considering Frankie and I both needed a walkthrough. But essentially, you have to go and explore this dungeon, shifting to the different phases to get through certain doors that are blocked by that color phase. Purple and then red are the big ones. Green is an isolated phase that you need to go to access these chests to upgrade your golem. But in order to do so, there's also a really brutal fight against like 6 other golems, which was harrowing. I was talking about
Sucked.
before. But I looked up in the walkthrough because you can go in and out of green phase and they're only out of the green phase. Once your whole party dies, if you go back into green phase, they all get back up because it's like there are no enemies.
That's smart.
And so I kept doing that until I eventually got through it. But like they had so much
couldn't even
help.
get out of my corner. That information would not have been helpful to me. I was trapped in this corner. They were not letting me out. I'm like, imagine me pressed up against the wall, one arm just useless, and me just swinging wildly with my other arm.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
The golems were like, we can't reach you.
It was not a fun fight. But as we progress through the rest of the dungeon and switch the phases, there are other, like we fight a lot of undead or other golems. There really aren't any darkspawn here. And we continue to see throughout this mission, a creature keeps skittering away.
Yeah. A familiar looking creature to me. I was like, you're interesting.
Yeah, I've not seen it before. And then it is a allusion to our final boss fight, which if you have nothing else to go over, we can talk about the final boss fight.
One of my notes is, fuck this place, let's go!
Yeah, I just hated this place.
One other thing, this is a complaint about Dragon Age Origins overall.
Mm-hmm.
They do this thing where you find codex information, and then they expect you to go into the menu, find the codex entry, and then read it.
Right.
Which, sure, I guess. But if you're a hyper-focused player, you're not gonna stop what you're doing. You're not gonna stop, like, the fight that you're in the middle of. You're not gonna stop, like, the thing that you're actively looking for to go into your menu and go look for a thing to read. You're just not gonna do it. The better thing to do when they pick this up later in their games is to just have, like, a pop-up that you can skim and be like, is this important? and then either you have that information or you don't. But if they just like, you found this piece for your codex and put it away, you're never going to look at it. You're never going to see that information. And you have to go into the codex to get the correct sequence of tiles to get to the red phase. I had to look that up.
Same.
But if I had gone into the codex and read the thing that I picked up, then I would have known what the correct sequence was. But if it had just been like a pop-up to indicate to me, like, this is important information, that would have been really helpful and more accessible. I think this is a question of accessibility and not so much design.
I would disagree. I think it's design as well, only because most modern games now, especially on the PS5 and the Xbox, when you find things like that, then the touchpad or Xbox button pops up and like on the bottom left hand of the screen, and it says, "Oh, to read this thing, just hit it." Like I'm playing Alan Wake 2 on PS5 right now, and every time you find a page from Alan's manuscript, like you get a little preview of what it's about, and then it shows like the manuscript in the bottom left corner with the touchpad symbol, and if you press it, it takes you directly to the manuscript, which then Alan reads to you and you interact with. And I think things like that are modern game design. I think it's both. But it's still frustrating regardless. I agree. I think most modern game design is like, oh, here's a shortcut to that thing, but you don't have to do it, but we'll give you the chance. Whereas Dragon Age Origins doesn't even do that. It literally, you loot it, it goes into your bag, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's something that I found really frustrating. But eventually we do get to the red phase. We can enter the forge, and we can fight the big bad.
Yeah, so the big bad is the Harvester. This little creature we see skidding around climbs onto the body of a bigger thing and turns out to be the head of this big thing.
Did you or did you not play Dragon Age 2?
I did, but like again, I've only played Dragon Age 1 and 2 once, so my memory is hazy.
Okay. Do you want me to say what I'm going to say because it has to do with the ending of Dragon Age 2?
I think that we probably shouldn't, just because we do create these podcasts so folks who've never played these games for the first time can listen along and play. So I think doing a blatant spoiler for the end of that game doesn't make sense. If you want to tell me so I know, or to remind me.
I'll tell you
after.
Okay, so I will say this. If you are a person who has played the Dragon Age series multiple times, then you will be familiar with the Harvester. This is the first appearance of the Harvester, but it is not the last.
This is a horrible boss fight. Mostly because...
The first part I thought was fine. The second part sucked.
Yeah, I think the biggest... See, and here, the opposite for me. So the first part sucked because all of my party ran in on the Harvester, and he started beating on all of them. And then when the ads came, they swarmed me while my party members died to the Harvester. But then eventually I realized I had so much health and defense, and I was so overleveled for apparently this part of the fight, that in the second phase, so when you kill the Harvester, he's not really dead. His head climbs off and you have to fight him. In that phase, I soloed it, and I ignored the ads. I literally just fought the Harvester, and I won. Because the ads couldn't do enough damage to me. Because at first I was trying to kill them individually, and it didn't work. Oh, but I was able to clear out a wave of them because when you go into the second phase, the Harvester's head just sits there, and you can actually run away. It doesn't aggro right away if you're not close enough. And so I ran to one of the bridges further away and slowly killed each individual skeleton. But then when I ran in, more came, and I didn't bother. I just fought it. I hated this fight. It was awful. I think I also hate not having my... This is a sort of balanced party, depending on what you're playing. But as a rogue who gets a second rogue, this party blows, and this battle blows. I hated the combat throughout the whole dungeon because I just felt ill-equipped to fight anything.
Yeah, I get that. I didn't struggle so much, and I think that could be because, again, I was playing on easy difficulty. I was level 22, 23.
Right.
So pretty high level, not so bad. But yeah, overall, my final thoughts on this as a DLC. I thought as a DLC for the time period that it was released, it was very well executed because it had the elements that we look for. It had interesting story. It had story that was not intrinsically part of the original game. You can play the original game without this and not feel like you're missing anything. It does add that little extra bit of like, ooh, spooky. It lacked interesting characters. That is something that I would have preferred to see. And as far as the storytelling and the puzzles go, it's up to par with the rest of what Dragon Age has done. I feel like I don't feel like it was worse.
Yeah.
I feel like it was on par with everything else. So as far as a DLC for Dragon Age at this time, I thought it was successful. Because even though the characters weren't that gripping, I enjoyed ultimately having played it and like getting that piece of story. You know, there were no major decisions to make, which also I kind of missed.
Right.
But overall, I thought it was a success.
Before I get into my final thoughts, I do want to mention the ending. So once you beat the Harvester, you escape with Brogan and Jarek, and they're both relieved. They're like, we're glad that's over. And then, of course, the camera lingers behind them, and then they show a skitter of multiple Harvester heads as it ends.
I only saw one.
Oh, it was like a wave of them. And then it ends, which is a very survival horror ending. It's meant to spook. It's meant to allude that there are more of them, that there isn't just the one Harvester.
I saw one leap out at the screen, and that was it. I did not see multiples.
Yeah, I saw there was like a wave of them on the ground floor, and then as they went up the stairs, the one jumped at the screen. That's fine. I thought, like, when this was trying to be creepy, I thought it was very successful. And this is relevant to my final thoughts. It
leaned into the horror elements very well.
Which I think Dragon Age and Mass Effect have both done well when they really go for it. But I do think ultimately I'm very mixed on this DLC. I hated the combat. I hated the puzzle solving.
Well, we didn't love the combat throughout all of Dragon Age, to be perfectly honest.
I know, but I struggled more here than I struggled in other DLCs or other missions. Like, I had more trouble with those 6 golems than I had with the Archdemon. Like, it just... It's one of those things, and that could be just the balance of the party, the fact that I'm playing a hunter, who knows. But I think ultimately, yes, the narrative and the vibes were pretty strong. I agree that it being standalone, for the most part, I mean, having some context of the deep roads would probably help that you get from the main game, but beyond that, I think knowing it's a dangerous thing and going exploring is pretty self-evident. But again, I hated the puzzles and the combat. I've also hated the puzzles throughout most of the game. There again, it comes back to accessibility. I think there's a level of expectation, but also back at this time and before it, most CRPGs, which this is sort of trying to emulate, though not quite, were a little more obscure, expected you to read your logbook, expected you to read your journal, right? Like that was part of game design at the time. There was less handholding, which, makes sense to a point. But I think
you make sense to a point.
I think the highlight of this entire DLC is easily Snug. It's hard to beat that. But ultimately,
nothing's better than Snug.
I think ultimately I ended up not enjoying it because I think I was just frustrated by the end. I think Liliana's song still shines as the best DLC so far.
Until we play Witch Hunt.
Until we play Witch Hunt, which I may like more. I have conflicted feelings about Awakening. I feel like it overstayed its welcome when I played it last time, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll get to it. But yeah, ultimately, I think I was lukewarm on this DLC. I understood what it was trying to do and thought the vibes and some other stuff worked, but for the most part, I didn't have fun, which is kind of the more important part. Whereas, like, even in the Darkspawn DLC, as much of a nothing burger as it was, the combat was as fun as it's been. But I still think this is... If I had to rank the DLCs we've played so far, Liliana's song is number 1. This is number 2, and the Darkspawn DLC is last.
I agree with that, but I have different reasons.
Yeah, which is fine. But ultimately, I think it's worth playing. I think Liliana's song is integral to really enjoying Dragon Age as a narrative. This you could skip, and I don't think you would lose very much. That's where I land.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it was a fun play, but also I didn't have as much frustration as you did.
Right.
So I think that's really what it comes down to. And I think it maybe comes down to what class you're playing, too. Like, I wonder if you played it as a mage, would you have had an easier time?
Right. Or a warrior. Because, like, when I played my tank in my very first playthrough, like, I could just kind of bull rush through everything, which is why I played a tank, because that's the easiest easy mode, because you just give yourself a ton of health and then you never die. But, yeah, I can guarantee that playing the Ranger Rogue definitely hurt the experience and has hurt the whole experience. Even though I liked ultimately that kind of class, there was just not much entertaining to it. I'm wondering if in the other games, if you still get the kind of an animal companions and like broad stuff that you get in this game, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, I do not remember. I never play as a ranger when I go rogue, because I always go dual wielding rogue, because that's my thing.
I mean, that's the first thing I played in Inquisition was a dual wielding rogue, so I have no idea either.
Yeah, so I do not know about in Dragon Age 2 what the ranger situation is like, because I never needed it. I always had Varric.
Yeah.
So, like, it just never occurred to me.
I mean, I don't think there's animal companions because Sarah's a ranger rogue, and I don't think I used to bring her sometimes, and she would never summon an animal of any kind, so I don't know. But anyway.
That could also just be, like, tactics and AI, just not...
Right. That's also true. But yeah, so anyway, that's a wrap on this DLC. Next, we are doing Witch Hunt. So tell me about this DLC, because I'm assuming we play as Morgan, yeah?
You are incorrect.
Really?
You see what happens when you make assumptions?
I make an ass out of you and you?
No, you make an ass out of you and umption.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because, assumptions.
I got it.
Yeah. Did you? Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Jokes are so much funnier when you explain them.
I have to explain things.
Yeah, I know.
It's the PhD. Anyway. It's the ADH PhD.
Yeah, exactly.
AD PhD. Anyway. I have to sell that joke to my husband because I know he's going to use it all the time once he gets into his program.
I mean, it's terrible, so yeah, of course he will.
Yes, he will. Because he steals all of my jokes. I have to make him a citation that he can hold up when he steals one of my jokes.
So he can give proper credit.
Yeah, so he could just be like, cited source.
Yeah.
Anyway, you do not play as Morgan, but this is about Morgan.
Oh, okay.
So you are still playing as your warden, or if your warden died, a new warden.
Right.
And you are trying to hunt Morgan down, which honestly doesn't super make sense to me if you've gone the route of Alistair isn't king. Because I feel like if you've gone Alistair is king and also he got her pregnant, then it makes sense that you hey, wanna check in on this baby situation.
Right.
But also if you decided not to have Alistair get her pregnant, or to get her pregnant at all, I guess it does make sense because she just leaves if you decide not to get her pregnant. I don't know. I think that your friend told you to not look for her, and maybe you shouldn't. But I actually do not know, or I do not remember. I actually do not remember the narrative reason for going after Morgan.
Well, hopefully they'll tell us. And also, I'm hoping that we can upload our warden from Amgarrak into this, because if we can, then that means we'll also then from this hopefully be able to upload into Awakening, which would make sense, but I'm not assuming anything with this franchise at this point.
I am hopeful. All right, so if you like what you heard here, follow us on social media. We're at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, facebook.com/reignitepod, or you can send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at FrankieBWrites and at FunninGamesPod. On Blue Sky, we're Frankie B. Writes and DJ Stormageddon. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher if you can. It helps us get seen so other people can find us.
Please do. It's been a while since we've gotten a new review. Also, love correspondence. Also, I noticed that you can ask questions now on Spotify. I know that Commander Blood has left a few. I have to go back and gather a bunch of them, but thank you for interacting with our podcast there.
I did not know that.
If you want to interact with your favorite podcast, they do have a way you can ask questions on Spotify. I mean, you can also just email us directly. That's the best way to get a question to us. But I noticed that the other day when I was checking some stats and some other stuff. So thanks for those interactions, and hopefully we get some more. We're also members of the Certain Point of View podcast network. You can visit certainpov.com to find more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find a permanent invite link to our Discord server and join in the conversation. It's been really lively over there, folks talking about games coming out since there have been 1,000 games in the last 2 months. We have a dedicated Baldur's Gate Grade 3 chat where a lot of folks are hanging out. A lot of folks sharing their Halloween costumes from back in October. Please come through. It's a fun place to hang if you're looking to chat about video games, comic books, TV, and movies, and you want like a low-pressure community to just kind of vibe with. Because I don't know about you, but I'm hanging out on Discord way more than social media these days because social media sucks and is on fire. Anyway, personal plugs.
I remain but a humble PhD researcher. If you have any interest in financing my sexy academic lifestyle, you can hit me up on Venmo at FrankieBradIsHellaRad or on Revolut at FrankieBWrites.
As for me, I'm still doing all of my other podcasts. You can find everything that I do at djstormageddon.com. Also, I would love to direct you to our Fun and Games Patreon, not just to contribute, though I'd welcome it, because I'm starting to do more article writing over there, and we have a free tier. You can subscribe for free and get updates when we post a new episode of the podcast, when we post the stuff that is behind a paywall, if you want to check out what it is and whether it's worth paying for. And most importantly, I've been writing articles there. I just wrote one about the Analog Pocket.
Hell yeah!
If you want to read that, it's completely free. It costs you nothing because we're going to be starting to treat the Fun and Games Patreon more like a blog and social media site because, as I said before, social media is completely on fire and sucks. And we have not gotten much engagement on social media anymore. And so if you want to hang out, that's the best place to do it. Same for this podcast. If you want to interact, Discord is the best place because Frankie and I are pretty active over there. And social media just has not been, a lot of stuff is, for a little inside baseball, things with links get pushed down on Twitter now like they do on Facebook, and that was our best place to interact, and now nobody's really seeing anything. So if you really want to interact, you miss chatting with me and Frankie, Discord is the best place to do that. We'd also like to thank Carter's husband for developing amazing shirt designs that you can find over on certainpov.com or on our Teespring, as well as for designing each and every episode's individual show art. Thank you.
We'd like to thank Radic Wade and Echoes of Oblivion for our theme music.
And we'd also like to thank the incredible Red Spinks for our brand new logo that's not that new anymore, but is still incredibly badass. To see more of his work, you can go to Chaos Does Art on Instagram.
Oh, that's it for us. I'm Frankie.
I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon. Remember, Grey Wardens.
In war, victory.
In peace, vigilance.
In death, sacrifice.
Okay, bye.
Hey there, Screen Beans. Have you heard about Screen Snark?
Rachel, this is an ad break. They aren't screen beans until they listen to the show.
Fine. Potential Screen Beans. You like movies and TV shows, right?
I mean, who doesn't? Screen Snark is a casual conversation about the movies and television shows that are shaping us as we live our everyday lives.
That's right, Matt. We have a chat with at least one incredible guest every episode, hailing from all walks. We've interviewed chefs,
writers, costumers, musicians,
yoga teachers, comedians, burlesque dancers,
folks in the film and TV industry,
and more.
We'd be delighted for you to join us every other Monday on the Certain POV Podcast Network.
Or wherever you get your podcasts, fresh and tasty off the presses.
What? That's not...
Can I call them Screen Beans now?
Fine.
Screen Beans!
So tune in and we'll see you at the movies or on a couch somewhere.
'Cause you're all Screen Beans now.
She will be mine. Aurora.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.